the man who built the American dream. It was the winter of 1931. The Great Depression had wrapped its cold fingers around the entire nation. Banks were closing their doors, factories stood silent, and men in suits stood on street corners selling apples just to feed their children. In Detroit, Michigan, the heart of the American automobile industry, things looked even bleaker. Thousands of workers had been laid off. The assembly lines that once roared like thunder were quiet as tombs. But inside a small, drafty workshop on Paquette Avenue, a man named Henry Ford sat at his desk, staring at a drawing. He was not a young man anymore. His hair was gray, his face lined with the worry of years, and the weight of the world seemed to rest on his shoulders. His company was losing money. Competitors were circling. Critics wrote in newspapers that the age of Ford was over, that he had been left behind by changing times. They said he was too stubborn. They said he refused to build what people wanted. They said the man who once changed the world had lost his touch. Henry picked up his pen and tapped it against the paper. He remembered where he came from. He was born in 1863 on a farm in Dearborn, Michigan. As a boy, he hated farming. He hated the slow, back-breaking work of the land. While other boys were content to plow fields and raise crops, Henry was fascinated by things that moved. Things with gears, wheels, and steam. At a nonetheless, he left home with just a few dollars in his pocket and walked to Detroit to become an apprentice machinist. He worked long hours, earned barely enough to eat, and spent every spare minute taking clocks and machines apart just to see how they worked, then putting them back together again. His father told him he was wasting his life. "You'll never make any money tinkering with iron," he said. "Come back to the farm. That's where security is." But Henry had a dream that one day every working man in America would own a vehicle. Not just the rich, not just the powerful. Everyone. It took him years. He failed more times than he could count. His first company went bankrupt. His second company fought over designs and left him with nothing. People laughed at his strange contraptions. They said horseless carriages were a fad, a toy for rich, that they would never replace the horse. Henry didn't argue. He just worked. "I will build a motor car for the great multitude," he told his engineers one day in 1908. "It will be constructed of the best materials by the best men to be hired, after the simplest designs that modern engineering can devise. But it will be so low in price that no man making a good salary will be unable to own one." That year, they introduced the Model T. It was simple. It was simple. It was black. It was tough. And it was affordable. But building enough of them was the problem. Henry knew that to make it cheap, he had to make it fast. So he invented something that would change human history forever: the moving assembly line. Before that, cars were built like houses. One group of men worked on one car from start to finish. It took days. Henry changed it. He brought the work to the worker. Each man did one simple task over and over. As the chassis moved slowly down the line, suddenly, a car that took 12 hours to build took just 90 minutes. He didn't stop there. In 1914, he made a decision that shocked the entire business world. He announced he would pay his workers $5 a day more, then double the average wage at the time. And he would shorten the workday from 9 hours to 8. Wall Street bankers thought he was crazy. "You'll ruin the industry," they said. "You'll go bankrupt. Henry smiled. "If I pay them well," he said, "they become my customers. They can afford to buy the cars they build." He was right. The American middle class was born. Workers bought cars, bought houses, bought goods. The economy boomed. The Model T didn't just change transportation, it changed the very shape of America. Roads were built. Cities spread, families could travel. Freedom became something you could drive. By the 1920s, 90% of all cars in the world were Fords. But success, Henry learned, is never permanent. By the late 20s, people wanted more than just black boxers on wheels. They wanted style. They wanted color. They wanted comfort. General Motors introduced new models every year, flashy and modern. Ford refused. He loved the Model T too much. He thought it was perfect. Sales crashed. The empire he built began to crumble. That brought him to this cold day in 1931. Sitting in his office, the depression raging outside, his son, Edsel, knocked softly on the door and walked in. "Father," he said gently, "the dealers are calling. They say we are finished unless we make something new. People want something different now." Henry looked at his son. For years, he had been the master, the one who knew everything. But looking at the lines on Edsel's face, he realized something important. Success isn't about being right all the time. It's about knowing when to change. "Okay," Henry said quietly. "We stop production. All of it. We shut down the factories." Edsel stared. "Shut them down." "But we have orders." "We shut them down," Henry repeated, his voice firm. "We tear out the old lines. We build something new, something better. If the world changes, we change with it, or we die." It was the hardest decision he ever made. Thousands of workers were sent home temporarily. The silence in the factories was deafening. Critics said he was finished. But inside, the engineers and designers worked day and night. They threw away the old rules. They created the Ford Model A. It was beautiful. It came in colors: red, blue, green, black. It had style, power, and modern comfort. When it was launched in December 1931, the country held its breath. On the first day, millions of people lined up at dealerships in New York, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in small towns across the nation. People came to see the new car. In just one weekend, they sold over 400,000 orders. Henry Ford had done it again. He had risen from the ashes. He didn't just save his company. He helped save the spirit of America. In a time when everyone was saying we can't, he showed we can. When he was an old man, reporters often asked him, "Mr. Ford, what is the secret of your success? How did you become one of the richest men in history?" Henry would look out the window at the passing cars, at the roads stretching to the horizon, and say, "Success is not just about having a good idea. It's about believing in that idea so much you are willing to work for it when everyone else is sleeping. It's about being willing to fail, and failing big, and then getting up and trying again." I learned that money is just a tool. The real success is building something that makes life better for other people. The real American success story isn't about one man getting rich. It's about lifting everyone up with you. He lived to see his company become a global giant. He saw the cars he built crossing deserts, climbing mountains, carrying families on adventures. Henry Ford started as a farm boy with nothing but curiosity and grit. he ended up changing how the world moved. And that is the true story of success. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters how hard you are willing to run and how willing you are to change direction when the road turns.